Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Super Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to be right back with today's Super Tuesday guest, but as always, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors. Now, don't hit that fast forward button. These are all companies that I used as an athletic director. They're great companies. You should be using them too. So take the next 3 minutes, listen to our shout outs, then listen to our Super Tuesday guest, and then go and visit the sponsors if you're not already using them. I'm telling you, you're going to be very glad you did. Here we go. We want to say thanks to our good friends at Snap Raise for their support. Have you ever spent weeks and weeks with a fundraiser and then been disappointed in the results? Well, those days are gone. Go to snapraise.com. It's hands down the best online fundraiser out there. We used it at our school with great success because it works. Go to snapraise.com. You can check out their other great platforms. But if you're looking for a fundraiser, you just found it. Snapraise.com. We'd like to thank Sideline Interactive, indoor score tables and video boards. Go to sidelineinteractive.com and you can schedule a live web demo to see their score tables and their score boards in action. Probably one of the best purchases I ever made was our Sideline Interactive indoor score table. Go to sidelineinteractive.com. We'd like to say thanks to our good friends at Gipper. Go to Gipper.com. Their team is going to have you creating world-class content on your social media channel to celebrate your athletes and promote your teams. Your kids are on social media, so are a lot of their parents, that if they're not seeing posts to celebrate their accomplishments, you're missing out on a great opportunity. Go to Gipper.com to get started. That's Gipper.com. We also want to say thanks to Huddle. As a football coach, I used Huddle for years, but when I became an athletic director, I made sure that our school was a Huddle school, and our coaches just loved the tools that Huddle provided. Our kids love the videos, and our parents love the streaming, but there's so much more. Go to Huddle.com. Turn your school into a Huddle school. We'd like to thank Ohio University and their online masters in athletic administration. Now, I didn't get my master's from Ohio University, but my assistant athletic director did, along with thousands of others, and it was a great experience. It's very affordable. It's totally online. And while you're getting your master's, Ohio University also includes 11 NIAAA leadership training courses at no extra charge. Go to ohio.edu/info/MAA, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration. We'd like to thank Home Campus. Home Campus is a platform that you will use every single day. Things like scheduling, rosters, communication. How about student athlete eligibility and clearance? Who doesn't do that every day? Home Campus does all of these things and more, and it does them better and it does them faster. To get started, just go to homecampus.com. That's it, homecampus.com. We want to say thank you to Vital Signs Wall of Fame. If you're looking for a really cool way to display your school record boards for all the teams, for all the events, or show off your school's Hall of Fame, go to Vital Signs Wall of Fame and take a look at their interactive touchscreen video consoles. It's also a great way to tell your school's unique history and brag about your proudest moments. The website is vitalsignswalloffame.com. We'd like to thank Hometown Ticketing for their support. Hometown is the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. I don't think I need to say anything more. Go to hometownticketing.com. It's digital ticketing that offers more. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack. Athletic directors already get feedback, but a lot of times it's from a very small group that just wants to complain. Athletic Surveys will connect you to that group, but they're also going to connect you to the 98% that supports your program. And that information is incredibly valuable, especially when you're visiting with a frustrated parent or maybe your principal or even your school board. Go to athleticsurveys.com. They're going to create a custom survey that lets you take the pulse of everyone in your program. athleticsurveys.com. Welcome back, everybody, to another segment of Super Tuesday on the Educational AD Podcast. This is our series where we have 10 members of our Super Tuesday team, and they get to come on and share some thoughts and some of the wisdom that they've collected over the years. Back with us for a third round is one of our friends of the show, Nathan Whitaker. Regular listeners will recognize that name. If you're new to the show, Nathan has an incredible background in athletics. He was a high school and college athlete. He worked for an organization that won a Super Bowl. He'll talk about that maybe just a little bit. I like to say I'm a best-selling author on Amazon, which I am. Nathan's a New York Times best-selling author, #1. And he's got a whole series of books with a guy named Tony Dungy. Hopefully he's going to share some of that and more. But Nathan Whitaker, welcome back to Super Tuesday.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate being back, and I'm glad you haven't tired of me yet. It's always fun to come back and be a part of this, so I appreciate that.
Well, again, you're a nationally known speaker and author, success in a number of different areas. What are you going to share with our listeners today on Super Tuesday?
Well, thanks, and I appreciate the chance to talk about something that's been on my mind. As you mentioned, it's been a fun run, and I've gotten to do. I worked for the Bucs, as you mentioned, so I've got this crazy ring, and be a part of different teams. One of the things I've gotten to do over the years, and in no small part by being a member of the Gainesville, Florida community here by the University of Florida, is I've gotten to know Billy Donovan. And so I want to talk about a theme that everybody knows, but jumping off from something Billy spoke about last week. We had an event in town, my dad and I and Billy spoke, and we did a Q&A with him, with community folks. And he talked about a number of topics, but one of the things he talked about was communication, and how so often as leaders, coaches, ADs, whatever it may be, parents, teachers, we have to not only communicate, but we sometimes have to have really hard conversations. And so it's one thing to communicate, but it's another thing to dive in and to have some of those hard conversations. And for those of you who watch the SEC Network or have watched Florida basketball over the years, Billy had a player named Patrick Young. And Patrick, great player out of Jacksonville, 6'11", 60 pounds of muscle, and just a remarkable person. And Patrick told the story, I heard him tell it again a couple of weeks ago, about how Billy invited him to transfer at one point during his Florida career. And Billy sat down and said, I'm not sure this is the right spot for you, and maybe you need to find somewhere else. Patrick, fantastic player. They won the SEC. They won like 30 straight games, went to the Final Four, went 18-0 in SEC play, the first SEC team to go undefeated during the regular season. Patrick was a huge part of that. And here was Billy inviting him to transfer before that season. So I asked Patrick, and for those of you who may have seen Patrick, he's now in a wheelchair, had an accident a couple of years ago, does a lot of speaking, writing, and is really inspirational as far as how he has addressed that head on and is trying to help others along the way as well. But Patrick spoke on this, and then Billy did too. I asked them both. And Patrick said, I was in a bad spot when I was in college at times, and I was really my own worst enemy. And Coach Donovan sat me down and said, can you get it done here? Are you happy here? Is this a bad situation for you? And when I asked Billy about it, Billy said it was a hard conversation. Billy said there were times when Patrick is his own worst enemy. I was actually in the gym one time when I saw Billy trying to correct Patrick, and Patrick got really upset during a practice and punted a basketball across the arena. Billy threw him out of practice and said, you can't come back to practice until we sit down and talk about this. And Billy said he got on the phone and called Patrick's mom, who he'd gotten to know well over the years. And he said, hey, I've got this situation, and Patrick's his own worst enemy. And his mom said, not a problem. What I've learned to do is just to let it sit for a couple of days, and then he'll be in a better headspace and you can talk to him. And Billy said, well, great. I've got a game tomorrow. So either he's going to get in this headspace or not, and I've got to move on. And what do I do? And so Billy called him in. Billy and Patrick spoke, and then Patrick spoke to the rest of the members of the team, and they had this give and take. And Patrick told them about how ever since he had been an oversized sophomore in high school, he had felt this incredible pressure to live up to other people's expectations of him and to be like, and he named NBA players that he thought he was supposed to be like. And Billy said, it was just this crushing pressure that Patrick was having to face every day. But until things blew up and until we had this moment and until we had to sit down and look across from each other and say, is this the best spot for you? Why are you here? Why is this not working? Why did you just freak out in practice? And Patrick to address it with Billy, and then Patrick to address it with the team and talk about these things. And Billy said it was this amazing moment where the guys on the team are looking at him going, we don't want you to be Dwight Howard. We don't want you to be Hakeem Olajuwon. We just want you to be Patrick, because that's all we need to do to win here is to show up and be Patrick. And Billy said that so often for so many of us, we're afraid sometimes to have those hard conversations, right? We throw somebody out and we say, okay, you know what? In a couple of days, you can, whatever it may be, or you tiptoe around them, or you coddle them, or you think, I can't let this player transfer. I can't invite this conversation. I have to have this player or coach or whatever it may be. But Billy said it was a matter of sitting down and saying, I'm confident enough to have this conversation. I'm confident enough to know that the outcome may not be great for me in the short term. Patrick might have left. Patrick might have stayed and decided, I don't want to play basketball anymore. I just want to be a student at the University of Florida or whatever it may be. And Billy said, but I was willing to confront that and to say, okay, this is not working for all of us. How can we make this better for you? How can we make this better for us? What do we have to do? And he said, that's where you really get some breakthroughs, is when you're not afraid to have some of those conversations that can be hard and challenging, but are really necessary as a leader.
Boy, I'm just, and I'm guessing maybe some of our listeners are too, as you're sharing that story. I'm just going back through my own coaching career, and thinking of situations where those types of situations happened. And, you played for Steve Spurrier, legendary coach. You're having conversations with Billy Donovan. Um, how can one of our listeners, who might not be a Hall of Fame Division I coach, how do you think what's the pathway to developing that skill, or as I like to say, that tool in your toolbox? I think for some people, it comes to them naturally. For others, like me, it did not. I had to work on that. What are your thoughts on developing that particular tool, the ability to have meaningful, tough conversations?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think to me, a big part of it is being confident enough to go into places that aren't always comfortable. I mean, you may have coaches who don't feel like they're getting the support. They need more equipment. They need better practice times. They need whatever it may be. Parents aren't supporting, boosters aren't, whatever. And so they're whatever the issues may be that are cropping up actually may be stemming from somewhere else. And I think it's being willing to say, let's come in and talk. You seem like you're flying off the handle. You seem like you're at times undermining me or going behind me to the parents or whatever it may be. Hey, here's my perception. Where's this coming from? And know that the answer might be not great, right? They might say, hey, look, you like the volleyball team more than you like me. They get better gym times. They get whatever. And then that at least gives you a chance to say, oh, that actually isn't where I'm trying to go here. I mean, I'm assuming you're coming at it from a reasonable place of trying to use the assets and the things you've got and the resources and allocate them appropriately. But at least gives you a chance to sit down and say, oh, all right, I can see where you think that. Actually, here's what's happening there. Here's what's going on there. Or, hey, I'm trying to stretch every dime I can, and you got new uniforms 2 years ago, but volleyball got them 4 years ago. So I had to go with volleyball. And so I'm sorry if you may not have been around to see that, or you may not realize whatever that is, or whatever the issues may be, but to be able to sit down and say, this, I may take a figurative punch here. They may say, hey, look, you're not treating me right. And at least have the ability to say, I'm glad you said that. It's a safe place for you to say that. And I may not have a great answer. I may not have an explanation. Your perception may be right. You know what? I may not. I figured you didn't mind practicing after the volleyball team finished and you were good with that. And you just seem to roll with the punches. So I think that's a big part of it. And then the other thing I think too is to invite those conversations maybe before they become an issue. I've got a friend who talks about the stay interview. And he said how we're always focused on the exit interview, right? When somebody leaves, hey, what could we have done differently? What went wrong? Don't let the door hit you on your way out, whatever it may be. But he said, how about the people who are actually getting it done and are an important part of the program and making sure they feel heard and they get a chance to share with you, here are the things that make me stay. Here are the things that would actually make me even happier. I'm going to stay no matter what. But if we could address this, well, you know what, we can't address that and that, but maybe we can address this. But whatever it is, to get that feedback from somebody along the way before it becomes a major issue, hopefully, and also learn from those folks who are actually sticking it out and trying to make it work with you. So I think there are a number of ways to come at that, but part of it is humility and part of it is the self-confidence to go, okay, I may not hear what I want, but I'm going to be okay through this, and I'm just going to listen and see where we go from there.
I love that, and you're right. It's equal parts confidence and humility, and I think there's a fine line between that confidence and cockiness. And
Mhm.
I know in my career, particularly my early career, I'm uh, slipping over that line too much. I just talked to an AD recently, and talking about tools, he talked about the importance of, he tries to be transparent, and in his conversations with everybody, with kids, coaches, and parents. And I think that's important too. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Looking at your career and in the number of different groups, different types of groups that you've spoken to, corporations, institutions, teams, et cetera. Uh, can you identify one, and you don't even have to identify by name, but can you identify one where the leaders of that particular, organization, institution, they were really doing a great job of, humbleness, but also confidence in their communication with their team?
Yeah, so spoke at a credit union a couple of years ago, and new leadership and trying to figure out kind of how to build the culture that they wanted to build. And so they really took a look at what are the things that we're trying to address that weren't working for people, and having conversations with folks. And then what do we want to do going forward, and how do we want this to change? And so one of the things they came to that was interesting is that they said, we want people to lead from their seat. And so it didn't matter if you were the teller or the person addressing folks as they came in, or you were the executive vice president or whatever. If you had an idea, or if a customer came to you and said, hey, it would work better for me when I come into the branches if whatever, have a way to pass that up. Kind of like the allegory, whether it's true or not, of the Flamin' Frito-Lay's story that we've heard about from 30 years ago about the custodial staff, bringing that to the CEO. But this idea that we're going to take great ideas from wherever, and then along the way having to figure out, okay, this is a little bit overwhelming to get ideas from every single person in the organization on everything, and then figure out, okay, how do we best manage this? But I thought it really was that willingness to say, we want to over communicate. And even if it's too much, we're going to try to figure out, okay, do we have to dial it back? Do we have to figure out how to do this better, more effectively? But we're going to make the effort to over communicate rather than under communicate. We want to make sure that everybody feels heard and feels like they have a place here.
Well, you're right. Managing all that input can be a challenge, but I don't think, I'm not aware of an organization, a team, a school that's failed due to over communication. I think it was probably
Mhm.
the opposite, that those conversations, as you alluded to at the beginning, those conversations weren't happening at all, and if they were happening, they were being handled poorly. Guys, such a great topic. I wish we had more time on this segment, but if one of our listeners wanted to reach out, find out more, just connect you to your network, or possibly bring you to their organization to talk about how they can become a better team, what's the best way they can get a hold of Nathan Whitaker?
The best way is through my website, www.nathanwhitaker.com. And I've got a way to contact me via email. You can also reach out to me through social media, but certainly through the website is an easy place to start.
Let's go and give a shout out while we got you. A couple of your books. What would you recommend for somebody who, for whatever reason, hasn't heard about Nathan Whitaker's very, very successful and very, very worthwhile reading books?
Well, thanks. I appreciate that. One of the things, given that we've been talking leadership, Tony Dungy and I wrote a book in 2011 called The Mentor Leader. And it's a lot of the leadership practices you kind of know and appreciate. But with this very Tony specific twist of mentoring. This idea that if we're not leading for the benefit of others, then maybe we're just manipulating. That if we're not trying to actually help other people grow as leaders and understand that they may someday replace us or they may take off and do a great job somewhere else. And that's okay, because we're just trying to make everybody around us better. So that would be one of the books that I thought was particularly strong and one that I feel proud of.
Well, if you want to find out the entire Nathan Whitaker library, among other places, go to Amazon.com, type in Nathan Whitaker, and you're going to have a good selection of books to choose from. Nathan, always great to catch up with you. All the best moving forward, and we'll look forward to the next time you stop by on Super Tuesday.
Thanks, Jake. Always great to be back at the Educational AD podcast.
Okay. For listeners, it's great to have you. And just a reminder, we upload the Zoom recordings of all of our interviews to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We do this just about every day, trying to share stories and best practices. So hopefully you'll come back for another episode on the Educational AD Podcast. We'll see you next time. Always a great time with Nathan Whitaker. That's nathanwhitaker.com. Make sure you check him out. Also, we want to give a shout out to our sponsors because we wouldn't be doing this without their help. We want to thank Gipper. We'd like to say thanks to Huddle and Hometown Ticketing, Snap Raise, Vital Signs Wall of Fame, the Ohio University Online Masters in Athletic Administration, Athletic Surveys by LifeTrack, Home Campus, and Sideline Interactive. Thanks again. We'll see you next time on Super Tuesday.